And Tupac had to see the bitter consequences of his own mother living the contradiction between black revolution on the one hand and its promise and possibility, and on the other hand, the capitulation to the worst form of anti-revolutionary impulse there was, that is addiction.
Watching his mother fall from grace fashioned a drive in him, just as powerful as the one she had tried to instill in him in the 70s. He was consumed with rising above where he was, hungry for any knowledge he could get or any edge he could gain.
You can't know Tupac without knowing how much he read, without knowing the library of books that he devoured. And this is not because of school, because he left school. He chose not to finish high school and to pursue his career. And Pac always had a book with him. I don't know that people know that.
The more he read, the more he began to believe he was a member of an expendable race being extinguished, and nothing was being done to stop it.
You and I can live beyond our means, but for only a limited period of time.
In one sense, the drug industry and the government turning its blind eye fed the rise of the prison industrial complex. The prison industrial complex means that black and brown people are being incarcerated at disproportionate rates to the larger white population for nonviolent crimes.
You can look at it with a 3 strikes law. You can look at it where they're building more jails. They're starting to sell jail space. You know, jail is big business. Believe me, I'm in jail. I see the big business. They charge you for your telephone calls. They charge you for disciplinary problems. Jail is big business. You know, you can feed a whole town off one jail. This jail is in the middle of a town that feeds everybody. Everybody works here. This is the main income. So if there was no criminals, nobody would work.
The prison industrial complex is being expanded enormously. The exponential increase in the prison population, now above 2 million people, half of whom are black and brown people, is an incredible index of the furious disregard of black and brown life at the hand of a government that doesn't need individual white or black people in its seat of power to control. The machinery itself is disposed against black and brown people.
When you start looking at it like that, you'll start seeing that it just don't weigh out to be in our favor. So we need to start figuring out another way. You gotta start peeping the game. The game is the game of life. You gotta start peeping how they're doing it. And if you see it, you can see the little signs that says that the guns are turning away from, you know, Europe and Russia and Iran and Iraq, and they're turning to us.
Seem like we all been fooled, you know what I'm saying? It's just, you know, do we really know what's going on? And
soon the government is gonna make the young black male, the young Hispanic male, the prime target of all their resources and all their jail sentences and all their powerful weapons and technology will be the enemy. So unless we stop it now, regulate it, we're gonna end up crashing against a wall. So if there's a way that you can get out of the game before it's too late, get out the game before it's too late. If you're gonna be in the game and you committing yourself fully, then, you know, do what you can to give back to the community that you're raping.
So to be the child of a revolutionary who was also poor, whose mother also was addicted to crack, who also had a father figure who was part of a thug tradition, Tupac barely had the capacity to be legitimate in the eyes of the very black people who began to see him later on in his life as a flashpoint and a lightning rod for enormous forms of contradiction. So he does represent not only the 70s and the 80s crack cocaine, he represents also the way in which black nationalism began to be much more focused on how do you get paid and get rich and use black capitalism as a means of subverting the system, as opposed to burning buildings down, throwing bombs in subways, and trying to interrupt the government's operations.
What I do, conceal big weapons still on probation. Who are you? Type of cattle bust with hesitation. Is it true? You a rider? Just perpetration.
The ghetto became the source root, the major metaphor for Tupac that seized him by the throat.
nobody really want to stay in the ghetto. We all want to elevate from the ghetto or clean the ghetto up, you know what I'm saying, have a nice place to live. So he always talked about the tragedies of the ghetto and the pain that came behind it.
But beyond being its translator, Tupac turned the ghetto into a stage, blurring his musical fiction and allowing it to bleed into his reality, constantly crafting visions of his own end.
He said that. If I die tonight, he said that. In Outlaw, where I said some dudes in a mask coming to shoot me, I said it, you know what I mean? And it ain't easy. I'm talking about being in jail. You know what I mean? And the judge not letting me out on bail. I mean, I said all of these things, and then it happened.
The ghetto has a lot of different experiences, and you have to go through the ghetto and make it through those different experiences. You know, be a soldier, and sometimes you have to be more aggressive to fight the enemies that's coming to you.
There's a culture of death that circulates in the ghetto that's very destructive in many ways. The attraction, the addiction, the fascination with the limit, with death, with the end, and with the closing of the infinite by the finite acts of homicide, of suicide, that are so rampant in the culture, both metaphorically and literally.
This obsession and apparent glorification of violence provides critics with their strongest arguments. Proponents argue it's only a reflection. Within Tupac's body of work, he acknowledges both sides, but points out time and again that hip-hop is built on theatrics.
My attitude was fuck it because motherfuckers love it. He tells you, it's all there. He says, I'm a man of many acts. Please understand my history, a man of many acts. He tells you, but he doesn't come out and say it to the mirror, but he throws it in his in his work.
I definitely feel for the mothers. I understand it's always going to be drug dealing. I understand it's always going to be violence, but we just need to regulate it so that we can at least have like a peaceful zone where we can all be cool, you know, or else we're going to all die. We're going to all be destroyed. And it's cool to talk about it, to recognize it, but I mean, how many times can we say the same thing? You know what I mean? I know it's a way for us to get out the hood, but what do we run into? You know what I mean? Once we get out the hood, shit, they don't want us over there.
To counter the venom and aggression, a mournful side began to emerge in the 90s. It focused on the pain that the cycle of violence caused. Tupac would drift from one tone to another, provoking cries of hypocrisy from the critics who saw only a man fixated with his own death.
There's a culture of death that was deeply destructive that he paid tremendous homage to through his kind of elegiac poetry. He talked about it constantly, he referred to it constantly. People understood that Tupac was in love with death.
It was romanticized again and again, draped in metaphors alluding to mythic Italian gangsters and mad dictators. There was a seduction to it, and it sold. The simple truth is, if he didn't sell records, no one would listen to anything else he had to say.
I know it's not good. If anybody speak up against violence, it'll be the brother that got shot 5 times. I got shot twice in my head, all up in. Trust me, violence ain't cool. And they know violence ain't cool. Ain't nobody out there with a gun saying it's cool to be shooting people. It's just, you know, it's certain situations where there is no way out. But there are situations where we can find a way out. But until we find that way out, we can't say not to live this lifestyle.
In the mid-90s, Tupac was the poster boy for the young black male. With that stage, he was able to articulate the ghetto condition. Ironically, the negative press that validated him with his fans put him on that stage, and his West Coast provincial mentality was what the gang culture thrived on.
My set, my group, my turf, my neighborhood, my geography, which is wrenching in its own consequences and also ringing a very fatalistic change on Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said geography is destiny. So what the ghetto does in terms of the Crips and the Bloods, what it does is valorize that ghetto as destiny.
You know what gang violence is, mostly, and the people don't want you to hear this? Somebody shoots your family member. So of course you retaliate. You know what I mean? Same thing the US does, except nobody even shot their family members. You know, they see somebody bomb a school and all these people get killed, so the United States feel like, ooh, that's messed up, we gotta go show them who's the real killers. That's the same mentality these gangsters get. America is the biggest gang in the world. You know what I mean? Look at how they didn't agree with Cuba, so what was to cut them off? That's what we do in the street, we block things off.
Like a movie, gang violence is scored with hip-hop. Conversely, some hip-hop feeds off of gangs as a source. But where the rest of the world saw an absolute evil, Tupac envisioned a positive spin, a notion rooted in the militant organization he saw in the Panther Party, self-preservation.
I think gangs can be positive. It just has to be organized, and it has to steer away from being self-destructive to being self-productive. I think this country was built on gangs. You know, I think this country still is run on gangs. Republicans, Democrats, the police department, the FBI, the CIA, those are gangs. You know what I mean? The correctional officers. I had a correctional officer tell me straight up, we the biggest gang in New York State. Straight up, you know what I mean? So this whole country is built on gangs. We just have to not be so self-destructive about it. Organize, you know. If you got somebody dealing drugs in the community, make them pay for the community center. If they don't want to listen,